Morrow of the Golden Age, A History of the Second Creation, compiled by Aristiophanes of Chariskos, the Lost Polis Chryxou. Chapter 1. It is said that the first one to discover the secrets of mankind did so in defiance of three authorities. The offender's name was Prince Parysates III of the Bosporan Spartakids, and the first defiance came against his patriarch emperor, Hyenon of Chersonesus. This emperor forbade his sons from venturing into the steppe that crowns the Black Sea, and while his eldest Spartacus was proper and diligent, the younger Parysates was forever absent from the palace, although his presence in the lower districts of the city was often known by the revelry his journeys inspired among the demos. The second defiance was of his companion Diotrephes. As a boy, this man had shown such skill at arms that he had bested his instructor in the presence of Emperor Hyenon. Since then, he had been the emperor's confidant, and it was for precisely this reason that he was placed into the retinue of Parysates. On the fated occasion in the year 202, on which Parysates planned to venture out into the wilds for an extended period, Diotrephes dutifully recommended against it. And it should not be said that Parysates took Diotrephes to be a cynic on account of his connection to the emperor. No, Parysates valued Diotrephes as a friend, and indeed as a bodyguard. Still, the prince heard no objections to his latest chase. He cited a teasing rumour of riches far upriver from the Black Sea. Rumours of the like abounded among the bloating caste of Scythians who rarely ventured beyond the walls of Chersonesus, of whom a great many were in fact refugees from the destruction of the eastern colonies once considered part of the Spartakids' Bosporan Kingdom. The third defiance was inflicted on the gods. In the spring of year 203, there had been portents from all corners of the Black Sea with foul implications. For example, a man with two bodies is said to have come to the colony at Tanais begging for food, twice as much as a common beggar in fact. In the Caucasus, it was reported that goats were taking flight, entrained to passing clouds. Most dire was repeated news from merchants that long streaks of blood were crossing the Black Sea like serpents, causing no shortage of lost cargo to achieve their supplication. Oracles were taken by the chief hierophant, and the words of the gods were discerned. A prophecy was made known, whereby the blood of kings would run in such volume that the Black Sea would turn red, a fate avoidable only by careful preservation of such blood until it had dried from the water's surface entirely. That Parysates knew this ultimatum is certain, for he is recorded to have spoken in affirmation of the oracle's decree at length, such that one writer who witnessed the scene recalled, "Although full on the meat of the morning's festivities, all present found their stomachs clawing at them by the time Prince Parysates concluded his pious appraisal of the oracle." With hindsight, such filibuster was surely the product of the prince's ulterior motives. Parysates wintered far north of the city, in a land for which the Greeks had no name. The Scythians leave no account of what they called the place until some years after the events set in motion here. He and his retinue of some 200 horsemen made their return to the city with the dark consequences of the shattered prophecy breathing down their necks. Thousands of nomads from the warlike camps of the steppe pursued the prince on their tireless horses, leading to a chase of such speed that no messenger could outrun the affair to deliver news on ahead. It was discovered instead by the clouds of dust that rose over the horizon, seen first by the acolytes who practiced in the eastern hills, then by watchmen on the city walls. By the time the King's Guard was informed and a general mobilization of soldiers was arranged, the vibration of hooves was chattering the cobbles of the market square in a terrifying chorus. Emperor Hyenon arrayed his 2,000 warriors in two lines across the road that flanked the aforementioned hills. Scarcely a fraction of a watch passed before Parysates and his party stumbled down the road in disarray. Conversely, the bloodthirsty Scythians at their back made a point of gathering their horses into squares and parading towards the city folk, the shadows cast by their tall steeds falling like a curtain across the field. When Parysates was close enough to receive word, Hyenon demanded to know what offence had brought this unheard-of response. Parysates produced a bundle from beside his saddle, and revealed what appeared, under the grey sky and through frantic eyes, to be a rock of no discernible quality. There was almost an uproar, until the prince declared, "This is a treasure that moves 10,000 warriors to ride without food or water. Know, countrymen, what our enemy know in their hearts. Their valiant fortunes are forfeit to us now." These words cheered up the soldiery, yet did nothing to impress the emperor. A quick assessment of the force that approached was enough to divine the foregone conclusion to this clash. At first, Hyaenon seized the treasured rock from his son and threatened to use it as a bargaining chip to avert bloodshed. Paerisades begged with unseen humility and no sense of nobility, and pointed out that the rock was laced with runes of an inscrutable nature. Furthermore, he argued that by his gauge of the Scythians' present mood and intentions, even if the rock was returned, they would still assault the Greeks all the same. This was the demand of the shamans, from whom the prince had purloined this prize. Hyaenon faced defeat in one fashion or another, and returned the trinket to his son amid a spell of deep breaths. As the Scythians approached the blockade of shielded warriors, arrows flew this way and that, and shields spat splinters upon their wielders. A squadron of mailed riders appeared on the right flank, and thrust lances through 4 ranks of citizen soldiers. Seeing more riders dismount and advance with shields and spears, the city men were backing away from their foe to the front and battling the wheeling cataphract horsemen to the flanks and rear. Seeing this, Hyaenon ordered Paerisades to flee to the city, assigning 100 of the royal guard to ferry him and some of his chosen companions with fresh horses. When Paerisades asked what the emperor would do, Hyaenon gave no reply and took off towards the front lines with his footmen. Struck at this latest possible moment by guilt, Paerisades reversed his prior assessment and promised to make peace through returning the stolen artifact, yet already his father's men were dragging him to the city. Sensing that their homes and families were in close danger, the battle lines hardened against the growing assault. However, when they saw the emperor striding towards the very center of the clash, tearful appeals were hurled at him. In particular, one of his captains, Apollos, pleaded that the emperor flee, saying, "There is not a man among us who would be alive without you. How easy it is to see ourselves fallen upon by endless foes to return a small portion of that favor. Go and seek profit from the prince's boon, such that men like us might one day stand in awe of your achievements again." Such was the loyalty Hyaenon had fostered among his soldiers after decades of campaigns on the frontier of the settled world. Indeed, the emperor's reluctance to allow his sons free rein in the steppe was not a mere vice of coddling, but a wish that they might avoid the harsh life that he and his men had endured on those endless battlefields. Therefore, a portion of the army returned to the city, while the rest made a name for themselves on the road. The Scythians had lost their mark in the chaos, and once their ammunition began to run low, they regrouped and let the rest of the day go by in peace, although by that point 2 in 3 of the Chersonese men were dead, and the remainder were in a poor state. Those who could returned to the city, finding it awake with motion. At this time, the senior prince Spartacus was directing workmen in the project of hoarding valuable items and persons into the royal fleet. Paerisades found his brother to be entirely without composure. The senior prince turned away the junior in a fit of rage so pitiful that all who witnessed the scene felt obliged to attend to their sandals or bag straps with feigned intensity. Paerisades and his fateful stone might have been left behind, had on the first account the people allowed his place in the making of this crisis to stymie their affections for him, and on the second account Spartacus not been so faithfully devoted to his father that he would not dare take as much as a grain of millet without permission, let alone a son, no matter how profitable such a loss might have been for the kingdom in his eyes. The emperor himself is said to have played no part in organizing the safekeeping even of his own household, instead attending to pressing matters with his officers and the Demiurgi council. By nightfall, the Scythian host could be seen lighting fires in a perimeter around the city wall, albeit it should be understood that more than half the city's circumference was against the sea. This wall was of rich construction, and offered far more protection than was usually required in rare cases of tribal raids coming so far down into Tauris. Yet two salient facts drove those with the means to escape to make their preparations. First was the fate of the other walled cities of the Bosporan Kingdom. The old capital at Panticapaeum had fallen early in Hyainon's reign, and many others were lost in the decades prior. By the year 202, few colonies remained across the Tauris and along the coasts of Cameria, all like animals of the lower orders, forever alert for the stampeding of steppe barbarians. Second was the abysmal state of Chersonessus' defences. Its wall, however impressive it was in places, had been broken apart along two stretches by an earthquake, said to have accompanied Paereces' first departure north 5 years prior. The damage went unattended to on account of the enormous cost, itself a product of the increasing rarity of good materials. Ordinarily, the work would have been funded via the sale of Scythian slaves to the merchants of the Black Sea. However, the city and its emperor had shown great caution about inviting retribution for raids of this kind. All that covered the breached portions of the wall was a wooden palisade, reinforced now with household furnishings. Indeed, it appears that in averting the dangers that had befallen other cities, Chersonessus had become weak, and thus invited those dangers all the same. It is no surprise, then, that while Paereces had instigated the ongoing raid, everyone had already been pessimistically expecting their downfall by this method for several years, alleviating the prince's apparent role in the disaster. At dawn, the Scythians requested embassy and had it granted by Hyaenon. Little was achieved for either side, for the Scythian demands were scarcely less than surrender, and the Greek offers were treasures of value that surprisingly did not approach that of a stolen stone. Hyaenon extracted from the envoys that the stone had been granted religious significance of immense proportion, the translator comparing it to the lyre of Apollo. Even this was an understatement. The negotiations were over before long, and preparations for the siege carried on. Many prominent citizens had left the city already, however the majority of those planning to flee awaited the direction of the emperor. This enhanced and diminished the mood of panic in different ways. Further Scythian envoys, never leaving their saddles, called 4 times each day for 3 days, delivering the same demands as before, through both coarse words and displays of marksmanship upon the city gates, in one case that marksmanship being the method by which a letter to the same effect was delivered. That evoked surprise among those familiar with the Scythians, who had scarcely been known to write letters even after enduring a Greek education. It was one more familiar than any who had the explanation. Paereces appeared before the Demiurgi Council, in breach of his de facto house arrest, and explained that some among the nomads had recently seized upon the art of language and writing like a starving man upon an olive tree. He explained this via gesture to the captured rune stone, the status of which had become such that it was kept in the council's chambers under constant guard. He went on to make many claims on its provenance. This writing was created by their distant ancestors from the time before the Trojan War. It is said to tell of a secret location where further writings from those times might be found, only they have lost all ability to interpret the script. Their thirst for knowledge of writing brought me close to some prominent chiefs, and it was through them that I came to understand that the messages they seek were written by the gods themselves. Those words could serve their cause more potently than any number of horses or arrows, and, good citizens, I could scarcely sleep for the thought of that. I was not naive to the risks of pilfering this bounty from my hosts, and while this is no trial, it is still true that my case has not been made, so I make it now, where it profits us all most. There is a place that the nomads fear to go, where trees overshadow the land so thickly that there is no day and night. It is far from here, a half-season's ride on good horses. It is the oldest part of the world, save for the seas, and it is said that all gods have been there at least one time. There they leave their mark, these stones. There they litter the ground like pages of a book. Knowledge left over from the Golden Age. This stone lay in a tomb of a great king for 3,000 years, always telling of where the trove of Olympian script is to be found. That, friends, is the cause of this uproar. Unpleasant as it might be, I consider this a peerless gift to whoever has the will to use it. Let that be us lucky few." The demiurgi had hardly been quiet during this speech, and now their voices swelled to drive the prince from the chamber. Still, it would be wrong to say that those wishful words had no sway over them. It was decided by day's end that the rune stone be squared away on the royal octeries with other treasures. That night, too, Spartacus and Peiresedes were moved from the palace to take up residence aboard this ship. Seeing that Spartacus wore his father's cloak of Pontic turquoise, the embarked nobles moaned and flirted with returning to shore. Diotrephes spoke for sleeping Peiresedes to point out that the bequeathing of the royal cloak signalled that the former king was king no more, and that no one could justify leaving the side of the new king to attend to a single citizen, no matter how greatly urged they were. These words quietened the passengers of the Octeries, which was hurriedly cast off before word of the night's events in the city might upset the other ships. In turn, the other ships were wont to push off and follow the royal sails. No fewer than 10,000 left the city that night, and that is to discount any who fled by unofficial means. Twice as many remained though, and while Hyaenon had thrown off his cloak of command, the nearly depleted demiurgi hastily granted him the rank of Archon, while simultaneously stripping all others of it, such that in the sight of the gods his authority remained proper. With this authority, he levied workers to strengthen the palisade and stone throwers to attend to the walls. However, these assignments were made late in the night, so no work was carried out before the Scythians came alive at dawn. Their scouts had not failed to notice the sea of sail carrying their enemy's strength off eastwards, and hence the attacks on the city would now begin in earnest. For the whole day, horsemen raced up to the walls and loosed arrows upon the battlements. In return, the Greeks shot bolts, arrows, javelins, and pieces of stone. It is said that the invaders were treated unfavourably in this exchange, yet the intentions of their heartless officers may have been just that, for not only were they desperately short on supplies, but a battle of any kind was required along the walls so that their teams of slaves and sappers might assault the palisade unmolested. At these two weak points, iron nails were used to fix ropes to the ends of the beams. The rear of these ropes joined a strangely fashioned harness that allowed many horses to pull on it, not unlike the device used to transmit the speed of a beast into a riding chariot. While it was too barbarian to be called engineering in the common understanding of the term, its effect is recorded too firmly to deny. The palisades were taken away by these enslaved beasts. For the Greeks, the only consolation offered is that they observed many Scythians killed by missiles as they worked, and many horses break either their ropes or their bodies through their efforts. Furthermore, the nomads found that making use of the entry they had won would be harder still. There was not a citizen of Chersonesus who believed their life might be improved by surrendering, so all manner of assaults came from every house and corner the Scythian vanguard passed. These actions were so shocking that the horsemen fled to the walls and waited until the following day to carry out their sacking. If any of the townspeople had found sleep that night, it was to a gaggle of odorous burglars they awoke, and thus they gave their all to show the gods how much they had loved their life before it ended. Those best suited to resist on were gathered under Archon Hyaenon outside the council chambers. Its wider compound was arranged such that a line of shield bearers could cut off the only route in, and hence when the Scythians came, a fierce battle ensued. Drunk on the promise of the finest riches, many riders dismounted and tried to slip through the cordon, but hunting dogs and enraged refugees surged about behind the shields to punish fools such as these. This defiance lasted most of the day. Once their strength was spent and their wounds from arrow and axe many, the Greeks began to withdraw to the council chamber itself. Seeing this, Hyaenon took up his spear and anchored the line with his own shoulders. Renewed fighting carried on until dusk. It was then that Hienon witnessed the Scythians break down the door of the Temple of Hermes at his flank. This temple was built to fulfill a vow he had taken as a young man, where he invoked the speed of Hermes to escape his bloody first battle in the fields of Olbia. Indeed, while his father began to lose his empire that day, he was spared the loss of his son by the grace of Hermes, and in return, Hienon had honoured the vow there in pride of place within Chersonesus. Now, seeing smoke begin to rise around its flaking columns, he felt his fortunes deducted. So it was that he faltered, and the fall of the city was achieved. The smoke above the city was visible to those at sea, causing speculation on the fate of the emperor. His sons did not partake for obvious reasons. Instead, they busied themselves carrying out the emperor's last wish. Spartacus informed the fleet that their destination was Panticapaeum, or more precisely, its remains. This had been done to assuage various fears among the leading men. However, to one who understands the geographical disposition of this region called Tauris, it is clear that to seek Panticapaeum in this circumstance would be like fleeing into one's wagon to hide from robbers come to steal the same. By fortune, the Spartakids had prepared a figurative, strong tower within reach, and when, in a private moment in which hate was overcome by brotherly kinship, Spartacus revealed to Pyrrhosides their true destination, the latter jumped to life like a spark. The fleet's end was easily intertwined with the young prince's fateful plans, and it is a boon to all that this was achieved. Hence a cargo of precious people nested among their timbers at sea, believing their salvation would be wrought by morning. Alas, it would be a while longer, and it was not the horizon or the ruins of lost cities that would offer up their desires. No, it was something closer to their bosoms, a mere stone by the lights of some, held covetously by the adventurer prince. Indeed, without that tiny prize, all of the world might have been doomed to destruction.